Greetings, programs. Oh, man. I'll tell you, today is actually kind of an exciting day for me. And I'm recording this on Sunday, March 5th, 12,017 HE. And what's exciting about it for me is that, wow, just this morning, I had two very gracious patrons. Like, really, they... I do little posts where I say, ding, this, another person is subscribed to, Sovereign Tech on Patreon. And then I do ones that are, ding, another Sovereign Tech subscriber has significantly increased their donation. And man, this morning, two people upped their donations to $20 a month, and which puts me over $300. And our first goal, again, is to get to $500, which, $500 a month, which would afford me to be able to do 2 episodes of Sovereign Tech per week that are totally for free. 2 full-on episodes. Okay, I would kind of change up to some degree what the second episode can be. All kinds of wild things that I have in mind to do, but I have to be able to, I have to be afforded the time to be able to do that. And you, as the patrons, really allow for that to happen. And of course, you allow for all this extra content. But I just want to, say thank you to those two who did that, and of course, just a huge thank you to every single patron, regardless of the amount that you donate. It just really means the world to me, and you make all this stuff go round and round, and you help me out immensely. I mean, you really, really do. And Sovereign Tech is, well, if you listen to this week's episode with Stephanie and I, there was even a story that we talked about during the Internet of Targets segment where Stephanie met people at Anarchapulco that she went to, which the Anarchapulco episode is going to get released as well on Patreon with me and Stephanie. But, she met a couple there that said they learned about the Internet of Things, the Internet of Targets, and just how dangerous and like the nature of, the reality around that industry and that business itself, the complete lack of security, etc. They learned about it from me, from Sovereign Tech. And they said, yeah, we're not going to have any part of it. And we're having a new kid, and they're not going to have any part of it. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, it meant the world to me. And of course, last week's Q&A, I mean, I read that. I love hearing, how much this show means to you. And thank you so much for also showing it financially. Not that you have to, not that anyone has to, nor do I expect it, but I'm honored when it happens. I'm always honored by the stories. I'm always honored by, just all of it. Thank you so much. Like, I mean, today has just been really, like, I woke up with that and what a great day. It really ended up being for me. Now, speaking of it being, waking up to a great day, this episode that I'm about to do, that I'm doing right now, is in response to a question that I got from a patron. Of course, patrons ask me questions, and then I do episodes about it, or I do Q&As or whatever. And this had to do with, I believe it was last week's Q&A. That would have been Q&A number 33, I think, where we read that one long email with a bunch of questions in it. That was just, I was so honored by that email. And a person asked that they would like to hear, I talk about how I meditate in that I meditate. And I try to meditate daily. I mean, it doesn't happen 365 days out of the year, but, as often as possible, I make it 7 days a week, and usually it is. I do meditate, and the person asked, that they'd love to hear a lot more about what my meditation process is like. What I go through, what I do, etc. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll take some time and we'll do a little episode here about it, and that way, we can get to other stuff in other Q&As. And maybe if people aren't interested in this aspect of it, then they can see that the episode is titled "All About Meditation," and they don't have to listen to it if they don't want to. So here we go. This episode is entirely about meditation and what I go through. Now, this is going to get into some unique. I'm going to reveal some things in this episode that I've hinted at but never talked about before. Because I've talked about my process of meditation in the past. I think I did it for like a pick of the week, but it was some time ago. A year or two maybe ago, definitely would have been at least back in 2015. Maybe almost to the day. And what I call it zero tasking. And the reason I do that is because meditation, has connotations with it of being very woo and, getting attached to, all these other, kind of wild ideas. And I don't necessarily mean that with insult. Sometimes I do, but, not necessarily. But it gets tied in with a lot of new agey stuff, meditation, transcendental meditation, a lot of these things became very popular in the 70s. The 60s, I guess, and the 70s, and sort of stayed popular for a little while. In the 90s, there's a bit of a resurgence, and I think certainly recently, when you look at the kind of the popularity of certain meditation apps, it is also kind of resurged in popularity. But you don't need any of those apps for what I'm going to talk about here. I've messed with some of them; they don't impress me much. None of that is needed. You need nothing other than you for the process that I am about to talk about. Now, there will be a couple books I'll talk about. One of which I'm going to play a little audio from later is actually a book that you've probably heard about if you've been listening to Sex and Science Hour, or if you listened to yesterday's Sovereign Tech. I think we mentioned both of those books, or we mentioned the same book in both of them, which is, the book is called You're All You Need, Real Happiness Through the Power of Meditation by Sarah Rowland, and it's narrated by Stephanie Murphy. Now, you can get this on Audible, and I will put a link in the show notes for it, so that you can get your hands on it if you like. I actually edited the book, and it gives you an idea. Certainly there's some great, so I've read this book. There's some great practices in it and all that you could take advantage of if you want something that's a lot more of a guided process instead of like a self-propelled or self-guided one. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on, in that whole process. So I won't just talk about my process, but maybe some alternatives as well. But anyway, that'll be, we'll talk about that. But there's another book, not really a rare book anymore, but there was a time not long ago where this was an exceptionally rare book. And in fact, there was a time where it may have been a bit of a banned book that we will get into, which actually, directly has to do with even though this book has a lot of woo-woo in it, it gets into a lot of the spiritual realm, a lot of craziness and some other things. It is the book that I actually use as my guide, or, how I developed my entire meditation process, or like I said, what I call zero tasking. Now, obviously, the history of meditation goes back. You can find, in some, Egyptian texts or Egyptian scrolls, papyri, you can find, mentions of where the Magi were, would practice meditation. Certainly some of the priests, it seems to be just one of the oldest practices ever written about, regardless of what part of the world you're in. It doesn't just have to be, the Fertile Crescent. It could be, in Asia and in other areas. In India, of course, very, very popular there. And oftentimes it'll take on different names, but the process is the same. The quieting of the mind, the calming of the body, for whatever reason it happened to be. Some people talk about it for, when you read about it from the Magi, they would talk about, in ancient Egypt, they would talk about it for, enhancing skills, which is actually, pretty much what I, look at it for, very much, is kind of just an enhancement of, my own body's abilities, really. But we'll get into more of that in a minute. Others, it's about communicating with some kind of God, or with, perhaps, I don't know, expanding your consciousness, which we've talked about recently on Sovereign Tech Patreon episodes. And whatever the reasons may be, that's fine. But part of the reason I think it continues to get practice and keeps finding itself in various, areas of resurgence is because it works. For whatever reason, and whatever, if you want to fall into some kind of mysticism or spirituality or pure science, it works. Or at least to me, I see it as working. So I am, of course, only going to talk anecdotally. Meditation, like some other things, is, it can be very tough, to get some actual research done, because you're really basing its efficacy on, subjective value of what people say. Oh yeah, I feel far more calm. Oh, I feel this, I feel that, and that's okay. I wouldn't write, a lot of that stuff off. And especially, there's, when does it stop being anecdote when it's been being done and been written about for so long, and enough people, really say that they happen to feel, necessarily the benefits, and they're not. And I mean, part of the reason I think that meditation can be, is such an easy pill to swallow, even for, hardcore skeptics, which oftentimes I consider myself, is because, the claims aren't outlandish. If you're telling me you're meditating to talk to God or something, well, I'm not there. But, the claims are usually just, a degree of peace of mind, a better start to the day, things like this. And, it's very basic stuff that, that can make a lot of sense. I mean, and stuff that may even be a little bit more scientifically provable, where, getting rid of distractions in your life. Like you can actually, you can kind of gauge a person's ability to focus. That is scientifically gaugeable. And, does meditation allow for that? Well, 9 out of 10 doctors, I don't know. Then you get into statistics, which of course there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? But anyway, I think it works. I think meditation works. I think, or what I call zero tasking. And I am a huge fan, and I will do it for the rest of my life. I have practiced it off and on at certain points in my life. And it's, there's times in your life where, look, it's tough. It's tough to cut out. So the amount of time that I do it for is anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes. We can start off by talking about that. Again, I am going to tell you the exact process that I go through, and I do it in the morning. But let's talk about that for a second. It can be very hard to cut out 15, 30 minutes out of your morning to where you can just sit somewhere, in complete peace. The points in my life where I wasn't able to meditate on the regular was because it was impossible, seemingly, at least in the morning, which is when I find it to be the most beneficial time, to find a place with absolute fucking peace, and with quiet, and to be able to do it. So that can be a challenge. I grant you, and I empathize with that. Like, that, it's really hard for some people, especially like if you live in a city. I mean, good fucking luck. You're going to have to put in, I don't know, you'll have to put in, something in your ears to keep from hearing all the cars going by or something like this. Excuse me while I have a sip of tea here. A little Mountain Thunder. Anyway, so yes. So let's start it off. Let's start breaking down into what exactly, this meditation will look like. Then I'm going to get into where exactly I got this meditation style from, because I think you might find that fascinating. But it's important, I think, to describe it first before I do that. So the first thing is, yes, you want to find. In fact, I have a whole write-up about this, and I'm going to read some of it. And this I made this myself. So step 1, select a room where you can be alone and undisturbed. Sit erect. And let's see, sit erect, sit comfortably, but don't lounge. Let your thoughts roam where they will, but be perfectly still for from 15 minutes to half an hour. Continue this for 3 or 4 days or for a week until you secure full control of your physical being. Now, what is all that really saying? Okay, so the idea is find a quiet place, sit erect. You don't want to lay down doing this. You don't have to, you don't have to be doing any kind of like shavasana, or, you don't have to be doing any kind of cross-legged, kind of pose or anything, but you just want to sit comfortably, but you want to be sitting up. All right. You don't want to be in a position necessarily where you can fall asleep, but you really want to be comfortable. Okay. And it can be anywhere, again, from 15 to 30 minutes. And just sit there. Now, this is how you start off. If you've never meditated before, okay, the steps that I'm laying out is like a way to get to, well, it's like working out. Okay, eventually, you can get to the point where you can be curling, dumbbells 50 pounds, on each arm or something, right? But usually you start off at like 10, 20, something like that, wherever you happen to be starting from. So this is step 1. We're building up to the process to where, you're really in that meditative state or that zero tasking state. Okay, so at first, this is step 1. You find a comfortable spot to sit, maybe a comfortable chair. Don't lounge, don't get to where you can fall asleep. 15, 30 minutes. Okay, you sit there and you do that, for about a week. And the idea is just sitting still. Okay, in this first week that you're doing it. You don't want, you let your mind go wherever it goes. Don't try to be bringing peace to your mind or anything. Let your mind go wherever the hell it wants. This first week is just all about learning to sit physically still if you can, or to the best of your ability. Okay, and if you need another week to do it, I mean, if you have a condition that doesn't allow you to sit still, obviously that's a very different story. Okay, but if you need another week to where you get to the point to where for 15 to 30 minutes you can sit completely still, take that other week. Take the amount of time. The first thing you want to get down is the ability to sit, absolutely physically still. Okay, for that amount of time. So that's step one. Okay, and that can take a week or two. Hell, it could even maybe take shorter. It might only take you like 3 days, or maybe on the first day. Oh yeah, I can sit still. I still recommend like making sure over a couple other days that you can do that. So take at least 3 days, trying to figure that out. But that's step one. To getting into this point of being able to meditate / zero task. Step two, after you've got that figured out to where you can where you can sit completely still. Now this is where, and this is the second week or the third week or something like that. This is where you're going to start trying to rein your mind in. Okay. And you want to, if you can, throughout this whole process, you really want to pick the same chair, same room, same area of concentration, something you become very familiar with. Okay. Now, if, as far as picking a spot, if you can do this, depending on where you live, like a really great place, actually, and one of my favorites that I used to do years ago, to go and meditate is actually go out in nature. Okay. Like go find, like what I used to do. I had, a pond nearby, and I would go out to that pond and I would, sit like at the edge of the pond, and there was this, one kind of choice rock, that I would sort of lean my back against a little bit, that I would do. And like the nice thing about that was, it'd always be the same spot, and really nobody ever came by. It wasn't like a pond that people went fishing in or anything. The nice thing about that was, obviously the fresh air was a nice bonus. And also, like that's the only place where I would find myself getting lost, not to where I would meditate for like 15 minutes to a half hour, which is what I'd normally do. But like I'd get lost for 2-3 hours sometimes, just meditating, which was really, really awesome. And honestly, or for me, my own anecdotal experience, I felt amazing, afterwards. But not everybody can do that, and I understand that, and I like that's not necessarily something I could even do now. But if it's something you can do, I definitely that's a great choice to pick there. So, but maybe you can't even always have the same room. Maybe you're somebody that's on the go. Well, try to pick something that looks similar to the other room that you're in. Maybe you're somebody that jumps from hotel to hotel. That might make things kind of easy for you. But that's pretty important. Even when you go into the second, third week, of meditating here. So now that's the second week, you've mastered the ability to sit completely still for 15 to 30 minutes, and you're going to do that again. But now what you're going to want to try and do is just try to shut down all the thoughts you have going on. This is hard, like no doubt, or at first anyway, it's very hard to do. Okay, you want to inhibit all thought, like just try and shut it all down. Everything. I mean, not just thought, but like the emotions, the fear, even the happiness, all that. And at first it's going to be tough because, like you might be able to do it for a few moments and then something will happen, or, a thought will come up like lightning, and suddenly you've lost that concentration of the ability to really just really quiet your mind, like, and not think about anything. And just all you have going on around you is just what your senses are experiencing. By the way, I don't think I said this. Your eyes are closed this whole time. Okay. I don't think I made that mention, but throughout this whole process, your eyes are closed. Okay. Because you're really, otherwise, I mean, then it becomes near impossible because there's too much going on. So there's senses obviously that you can't turn off. You're not going to turn off hearing. You're not necessarily going to turn off touch and breathing and all this stuff, but you get to concentrate on all that a lot more. And you want to do that, without thinking at all. So now understand that as hard as this is to do, it is not the end game. Okay. Eventually it gets easier to do it, but the end game of meditating, we still have a couple steps, to go down. Okay. But the end game is not to just sit there with, no thoughts running through your head. The end game is to have greater control of what thoughts are going in, in your head, but to have that ability to turn everything off. And from doing so, you can kind of get to, a much better place of concentration and focus. Okay. So, don't think it's over here. All right. But yeah, so you want to get to the point to where, for as long as possible, and it's not going to be necessarily the whole 15 or 30 minutes, okay? But for as long as possible, you want to build up that ability to where you can literally turn off, whatever thoughts or emotions are running through you. It's a challenge. Absolutely. It is an absolute challenge. And how do you describe what that feels like? Well, like I said, the only thing you're doing is like you're just, your eyes are closed and you're experiencing perhaps what you hear, in breathing. And concentrating on breathing, a lot of people talk about that one, is a great way to, to get rid of thought, because then all you're doing is just like, you're just kind of feeling the breathing and hearing the breathing, and, no other emotion kind of going through. That can work for some, and anyway, it's, that's the next week. And you want to take, that usually takes a couple weeks, frankly, so understand, this is not something you're just going to start doing tomorrow. This is an ability. This is a skill that you have to build up. Like I said in a previous, Patreon, Q&A, where, I talked about the, kind of the old Ptolemaic saying, which is there's no royal road to geometry. But there's no quick routes to this stuff. Okay. You have to learn it. It's something that you learn. This isn't some, woo-woo mysticism. This is a real skill that you develop and, and that you work on. Okay, so it might take you a month to get to the point to where you're, really in the act of meditating. And that's okay. That's totally normal. It took me over a month. I can't remember how long it took me to be able to, and to get back in the saddle, it took me like, because I started doing it again, like 2-3 years ago, and to get back in the saddle, it took a couple weeks. It took time to be able to, build up my, kind of rebuild my ability. To really like be able to clear the mind and to really focus on the things I want to focus about. So anyway, that's step 1 and step 2. That can take anywhere from a couple of weeks, honestly, to a month to get that down to where you're learning the ability to really to inhibit your thought and control your physical body, to keep it, just be absolutely still. Okay, now step 3, and I'm just going to read from my little write-up here. If you've mastered step 2, which again may have taken a week or so, go to the next trick of zero tasking. Be perfectly still, inhibit all thought as far as possible. Again, as far as possible, nobody's going to be perfect on that. But relax, let go, let the muscles take their normal condition. You're completely relaxed. Remove all, this will remove all the pressure from the nerves, eliminate the tension, from physical exhaustion, which can produce physical exhaustion, etc. And, so this is where you're really putting both of those together. For like another week. Okay. And again, I get it that this, this might sound a little crazy, but this is the process that I go through. So now in this third week or whatever week it ends up being, but in this third step, this is where, okay, like, because in the previous 2 steps, you had to really concentrate to, keep your body from moving, right? And then you had to really concentrate on trying to create large spans of time where you can completely inhibit thought. And the thing is that you sort of had to concentrate about that, right? Like it was an effort to be able to do that. And then with the third step in this, third week or whatever week it happens to be for you, is when you want to start like relaxing. Doing those 2 things: body still, mind, thought inhibited. But now you want to relax relax your mind and body in that process. Make it to where you're working on it becoming like a second nature, to where you can just sit there in that same room, that same chair, and everything, you're not moving, thoughts inhibited, but you're relaxed. It's not an effort on your part. It's just happening. And you want to do that for another week. Okay. This is again, potentially third week or some other week. And you do, and that's all you do is just learn to relax while doing the previous 2 things that the previous 2 skills you developed, that it becomes second nature to you. Okay. Now, once you've learned that ability to relax in that process, Then, okay, now is when you want to start, this is when when you're meditating, you want to start concentrating on things or thinking about things that are important to you, that you care about, or that, that are a part of, just like your personal well-being and all this. And this is where I guess it can, sound a little woo-woo. This is where things can get a bit nuts. But you'll find what happens. This is how it works for me. Okay, it may not work this way for you. You'll find that when you start to when you get this control of kind of body and mind and just quieting both, there aren't like natural. I guess that's the best way to put it. There's like these. I don't know. Just like these thoughts will come in. Like these kind of. I mean, thoughts that sort of seem out of nowhere, and I don't mean that they're out of nowhere, like they're out of the Akashic record or something. And the universe is giving you some kind of thought. I'm saying that. Suddenly, you'll just get like these, very original thoughts, things you never thought you would have thought about before. I mean, yeah. Again, I recognize this is where stuff gets kind of wacky, but you're going to take in what's around you, and yeah, and you can concentrate on various things, but you're going to find that your mind has a lot more freedom to be a lot more creative about what you want to concentrate on. Be it in your head or even what's happening outside of you and all this. And so so that's step 4 is just finally like, okay, now, all right, let's see where the mind goes after it's quieted, and after the body is still and everything, and you're completely relaxed. Where is it going to run? Or you can try concentrating on something. What happens when you concentrate on that thing? Maybe you're concentrating on, I don't know, like a project, and a fun one. Hopefully you don't want to be thinking about anything that's going to stress you. But, you're thinking about a project or something, and suddenly you'll have, some kind of insight perhaps with it, because, you're finally getting your brain to really quiet down and be able to come up with some new stuff without the pressures of the world kind of coming down on you. Okay. Now, no, there's no woo-woo here at all. All right. This is my personal experience of what happens. I'm not reaching out to any God, I mean, this is what I do. And, I could make a whole podcast, frankly, about, what my thoughts on the creative process, meaning, how does an artist come up with this and whatever. But honestly, I think that, a lot of people ask me, and look, there's no boast here. Okay. I'm saying what other people said, and I am telling you what I go through to how I get from A to D. A lot of people ask me, like, where do you come up with the shit you come up with? As far as like, say the creative stuff, like for, Sovereign Tech intros or whatever, or something that I wrote or whatever. And honestly, like a lot of it comes up during meditation, or it comes up after the fact. And this is the thing. Once you get to step 4 in all this, like the process of zero tasking, like that self-control that you develop, mind and body, it actually carries on throughout the day. Like it really does. Like, suddenly, you feel a lot more things with all of all of your sensory organs, from skin to balls to bone. Okay. Your thought process, I feel like it, becomes a lot clearer. It's really something, because at any given moment, and this is the thing, is that this meditative process really sticks with you throughout the day, mentally especially, because suddenly, if there's a ton of pressure on you, you can shut it down and you can focus, because you've developed the ability for, however much amount of time, to really be able to turn off all those thoughts and to just focus on what's really, what's actually going on or what's important that's happening at the time. And this is why I think meditation works. I think those are the couple areas where it really happens, is that you get better control of your body and you get better control of your mind. There's no need for any kind of, crazy connection. There's no need for any law of attraction. There's no need for any of this kind of business. You just have better self-control, and that's only helpful. So that's, and again, I like to use the term zero tasking because, like I said, you start telling people that you meditate, and honestly, sometimes like, they get all these kind of, wild ideas that run through their mind, like you're connecting to your pineal gland or whatever the fuck you're doing. So, And really, I don't mean to disrespect a lot of that stuff. Some of that stuff has like, real grains of brilliance within it. Even some of the, some religions and some of the ancient religions, have little tidbits here and there. I assure you, there are simply grains of sand. There's no grand thing that these things have going for them. But there's little pieces here and there where it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying, and you want, and you can be respectful of that a bit. So anyway, that's really it. That's my whole process that I go through. I do it in the morning. I find that it's the best time for me. Sometimes I do it multiple times a day. Unless I was going outside, like I described, unless I was going outside, and out there I do it for like 2 or 3 hours. I really have never found any benefit to like meditating for an hour as compared to 30 minutes. And I think, the fact like I described that, those moments where I'd go out, or sit around the pond and I'd meditate for like 3 hours and, I'd feel like even more amazing. I think that in many ways, that had more to do with being outside than it did just with the raw meditation. Like that was a combination of things. It was an amalgamation of, it was a combination of just getting so much fresh air, kind of getting your biophilia on and then meditating as well and being able to soak it in a little bit more. It wasn't just like, oh, well, if you can meditate for 3 hours, you're going to get this better result. I don't agree with that. At least I haven't found evidence for that in myself. But yeah, so just 30 minutes a day. And, like I said, I know it can be a challenge to cut that amount of time out, or even if it's just 15 minutes. I know that can be a challenge, but if you can do it, in my opinion, you're going to feel it. You're going to, and take the time, take the month, take longer if necessary. I know we're in a, no, I need to be able to do it right now kind of world. Okay. But take the fucking time to do this right, to learn it right. And that's the process, that I go through. Now, where did I get that process from? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you. That whole process is something that I lifted, what I call zero tasking, is something that I lifted from a book from 1912. Yes, 1912. The book is called, and let me explain everything before you go, holy shit, he's reading that. What the fuck is wrong with him? The book is called The Master Key System by Charles Haanel. Now, some people may know what this book is, okay? And I will put a link in the show notes for this book. I don't think an audiobook would really be helpful for this. I've actually been tempted to make an audiobook out of it myself and narrate it myself, because it is a book that is long. You can find the book for free. It's well out of copyright, having come out over 100 years ago now. And it is now. There's a bunch of different versions of this book as well. Okay, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I mean, yeah, you can get your hands on this book, and it will describe, a good chunk of it will describe much of what I laid out as far as being the meditative process, and then of course it'll go into areas much deeper than that. So, the Master Key System, again, a book from 1912. It is very popular with what's called the New Thought movement, or what has been rechristened in the past decade, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. This gets into, the law of attraction, okay, which is at base level, I don't believe in it. I don't agree with it. I think it's horseshit, and it's terrible, terrible fucking science. Okay, even though it gets schlepped around as science, because it's kind of a tautology. I mean, it's bad science in that you can't really falsify it. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Okay. But The Master Key System is one of the books that Rhonda Byrne, would talk about, along with Wallace D. Wattle's The Science of Getting Rich, which Wallace D. Wattle actually wrote a bunch of other books as well, like The Science of Health and all this stuff, where he gets into, talking about that, like breakfast is kind of a, breakfast is this terrible idea. It's all a marketing scheme. And, well, interestingly, if you're somebody that's into intermittent fasting, well, Wallace D. Wattles, who, lived 100 years ago, was kind of on the money. He might have been anyway. But regardless, Charles Haanel was a person lived from 1866 to 1949, died at the age of 83. He was a businessman. He was also a Freemason. Read into that what you will. Along with a bunch of other things. He was part of the Republican Party, Shriner, the whole business. He was in a bunch of different lodges and everything, all these kind of fraternal groups, back in the day. He wrote The Master Key System when he was in his 40s, And it was originally, the book itself wasn't originally a book. Originally, the Master Key System was this it was these were popular at the time. In fact, they were really popular in many ways, honestly, until the internet became a thing. And now they've just taken an email form. There's still, these sort of things are still done. Perhaps you've, in fact, for the analogy, for the example, perhaps, you take an email course where once a week, maybe, you get an email from this course, and maybe you paid for the email course, right? I can think of some of these that do this, like there's a nonviolent communication one that I know of. There's a bunch of others. And they will send you this course, this email once a week that describes what you need to do for that week. Now, this used to be done kind of from the back of catalogs and, in newspapers where you could order and you would get once a week, you would get this new part of a course. So Charles Haanel did this Master Key System as a course that he would send out once a week. And, there were 24, though now the claim is that actually there were 28. Like there were some expanded aspects of the course, which the version of the book I have, which is the one that I will link to, okay, in the show notes. The version of the book I have actually has what are called lost chapters. Okay, and most of the free versions that you find do not include these extra, it's like the extra 4 chapters of the Master Key System. So that's the one that I have, has the extra chapters in it. The extra chapters themselves, I don't necessarily think they add a whole lot. They get a little more into perhaps what is Charles Haanel's philosophy, which has a lot to do with altruism, which of course I don't agree with, because, I'm a hedonist, and I think that the individual does everything through enlightened self-interest. Or what could be described, perhaps like what Ayn Rand would describe as selfishness. So I don't buy into altruism, whatsoever. I don't buy into kind of the interconnectivity that Charles Haanel schleps around in the Master Key System. And obviously, I don't believe. Now, understand, he was pushing out what was very popular at the time, which was the New Thought movement, which was this idea that, reality was coming from, you were generating reality out of your mind, as to where, compared to, what objectivism would say, where, reality is an independent thing. A is A, existence exists. The New Thought movement, which was popularized, the Transcendentalists, right? It would be popularized by Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Whitehead, again, Charles Haanel being one of them, Wallace D. Wattles. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these different people, who would kind of push these ideas around. And they led to, kind of the fruition of what was known as the law of attraction. Of course, they like to claim a lot of historicity with the law of attraction, saying that it comes from the Emerald Tablet, which is this, the Emerald Tablet of Thoth from, Egyptian times, right? And that supposedly, Sir Isaac Newton had translated and all this. It gets into very, very strange realms, some of which, again, there's grains of truth in a lot of this. Was there an Emerald Tablet? Well, it appears that there was. Was it actually written in Egypt? Was it something that was passed down by the god Thoth? Well, that's where things get a little sketchy, right? But yes, Sir Isaac Newton, had this sort of thing, and it kind of falls under alchemy, which is a very interesting subject that I'm a dilettante in, that I study heavily, frankly. Yeah, and so, but the idea that somehow reality is something that exists because of what pours out of your brain, or because of some kind of Akashic record maybe that you're accessing or something like this. I mean, I'm kind of combining different ideas here, but that in my opinion, that's absolute horseshit. It's total horseshit, and the scientific method, it falls apart every time you apply the scientific method to it. So, I use this book, The Master Key System, okay, and I want to talk a little bit more about it, because some very interesting individuals are at least either self-admittedly or supposedly have used this book and have used its methods and process, and supposedly to great effect. I want to talk about that, but understand, I don't buy into any of that. I think that what was tapped into here, okay, with the Master Key System and with a lot of this, meditation and all that, is really what's better described. It's not the law of attraction, because that's nonsense. It's intentionality, okay? And I've described this on Sovereign Tech, I think, at other points. And intentionality is simply that, humans, you have so many sensory organs, right? And your brain is processing so many things unconsciously, and consciously, of course, that you really send out far more signals than you possibly realize. No woo-woo, we're talking just straight up, what other people perceive, smells, just all kinds of things that are totally quantifiable, okay, that you put out there to the world. Again, it's not your thoughts, it's not all that crap. This is just stuff that other people can perceive through whatever means. Okay, for example, if you are a person that is looking to, maybe you're single and you're wanting to have, a loved one in your life. Okay. Now, if you watch the documentary, The Secret, or if you read some of Rhonda Byrne's absolutely atrocious books, and somehow she has multiple books, one of the examples that will be given is that, well, for the law of attraction to work, what you need to do is you need to, in your parking lot, say you have a larger house or something, and you have a driveway not in your parking lot, sorry. In your driveway, you want to park in your driveway that with room left for someone else to be there. For like your partner's car to park. Okay? Or when you sleep in bed, start sleeping on one side of the bed. Okay? And instead of taking up the whole bed. That way you're kind of, and they're, what Rhonda Byrne, what like all these new thought people, or, these people that espouse The Secret would say, or the law of attraction, I should say, is that will start to, that will send out to the universe, that you're starting to attract, or that you're wanting someone else in your life, and it's going to attract, and then that person will just magically appear before you. Here's the rub with all that, okay? That kind of works. But not because of the law of attraction. Not because you're sending out, you're telling the universe you want this or something like that. But you are kind of sending out unconscious signals, and perhaps even sleeping on one side of the bed, creating certain types of body language that may signal to other people, to other people's perception. Again, you're not controlling anything. But it could signal to other people's perception that, oh yeah, you want somebody in your life. It's that simple. But that's it. It's just intentionality. There's no magic. There's no universal hive mind doing any of this. It's just what other people are perceiving. You have it's not something, you're not controlling anybody else. You're not creating some kind of new reality in your life or anything like that. You're just kind of signaling to people that, hey, I'm single, but I want somebody else with me. It's that simple. It's the same thing as going up to asking somebody. It's a less direct version of going up to somebody and say, hey, would you like to go out for coffee? You're just unconsciously sending out that, or you're unconsciously saying, not sending out, because that sounds like the law of attraction. You're just unconsciously saying, well, hey, shit, I'd love it if somebody else lived with me. That's it. People will notice. But they notice. You're not accessing the universe or anything like that. It is absolutely completely gaugeable, just makes perfect sense, has nothing to do with any kind of law of attraction or some horseshit magic, from ancient Egypt or something like this. That doesn't exist. Okay? But I think that Charles Haanel was, he tied in kind of this new thought movement, and like this law of attraction and all this other shit, in with what is really kind of a proven meditative process that can actually help you come up with new ideas that perhaps could bring more wealth into your life or something like this. Okay? So that's all it is. This is developing, a more intentional, self-controlled human being. It has nothing to do with, but that's the book, that I got my process from. Okay, is the Master Key System. So now that's the part that I've never told anybody. I've described my zero tasking to tons of people. I've never told them where exactly how I developed that process, where it came from, and it comes right from that book. So you can get your hands on a copy of that book. You can buy into it if you want to. I don't recommend buying into what it says because honestly, a lot of it is downright harmful. But the process that it describes, I think there is, this idea of intentionality. There's a lot to that. It's not the law of attraction. You are not a god. You are not controlling anything other than yourself. Okay, you are not controlling existence by any stretch. You are not bringing and attracting things into your life. And oh man, just drives me wild when I hear that sort of thing. Now, The interesting thing is that this book, now, not all of it is terribly harmful, because within the book itself, there are actually a lot of interesting quotes. Herbert Spencer is quoted, who's one of my favorite authors and thinkers, frankly, of all time. I dare say I'm almost a Spencerite as much as I'm a Sternerite. So you get that. I mean, there's lots of Tesla's quoted in it. There's lots of very interesting quotes, and it does give you, I mean, just as a historical artifact, it is a fascinating book, even though, again, like I said, its appeals to, interconnectedness and, and altruism, I think, are positively damaging to a healthy human, and to the human condition. But Seneca's quoted in it. I mean, like there's tons of genuinely like really brilliant people that he applies some of their thoughts to in this. And so, there's some aspects even of the philosophy I think that one could consider interesting. And at some point, speaking of that, at some point I'd love to do like a whole series about Herbert Spencer, because I think this is a guy that does not get enough attention. Just brilliant. I don't agree with him 100% on everything, but just a brilliant piece of of human mind, in my opinion. So now, one of the, I guess really the only name I want to mention, within this book or about this book, that of somebody that theoretically used the book, and this is what turned me onto it. It wasn't The Secret. It was actually, I had heard a rumor, a conspiracy, dare say. Okay, because understand that this book was, for a long time, well out of print. I think it was on the Catholic Banned Books Bible. This was considered really, really bad stuff. And there was a time where, 20, 30 years ago, just even 20 years ago, where you would pay, you could end up paying a few $100, if not a few $1,000, just to get your hands on a copy of this book. It's true. I am a fan. In fact, because of this is the book that really got me on the kick of finding those rare out-of-print books, kind of like the Mana Machine, which a Sovereign Tech listener recently acquired for me. Not a cheap book at all. In fact, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was saying that he wants to get into like a hedge fund business for like overpriced out-of-print books, because some of these things, like, why do they cost so goddamn much money? But that, this is the book that really got me on that kick of finding these really rare and banned books and all this stuff, and making sure I have copies of them. And that's why I'm really glad. I mean, now you can get a copy of, the Master Key System by Charles Handel. You can get it for, a normal price of a book, including like this one, the one I have, which is not uninterestingly by Ishtar Publishing. Okay. This one, $13.95 USD. So, and that's exactly what I ended up paying for it. And this is the one with the lost chapters in it. I will warn you, there is a book out there called like the Master Key Arcana. There is nothing of value whatsoever in that book. And the book will they'll charge like 20 some odd dollars for it or something. There is no value in that. Really, all you want is the Master Key System. Like, I mean, if you're some kind of like Charles Handel devotee, which I hope you're not, but if you are, then yeah, the Master Key Arcana, could be an interesting book, because it has like a lot of promotional materials from the book and just a lot of like really odds. It's almost like a scrapbook of and a snapshot of the time in which, when the Master Key System was actually a thing. Anyway, so the person, sorry, I went off track. The person the conspiracy theory that I heard is that Bill Gates, as in Microsoft's Bill Gates, who I used to be a big fan of when I was growing up. Bill Gates, he supposedly paid good money when he was at Harvard for a copy of the Master Key System. And he bought it, and apparently he applied it. And of course, one need only look at Bill Gates' life and go, holy shit, did the Master Key System work? Did the law of attraction work for him? Right? Now, totally conjecture. Nobody can, you really can't get enough evidence to confirm whether or not he actually bought the book. Even if he did, let's say Bill Gates did get his, that the story's true, that he started practicing, kind of the Master Key System or something like this. Obviously, he didn't practice the altruistic parts either, but maybe that's where he came up with some ideas, is because he just started fucking meditating, maybe. Pure speculation on my part. I would not act upon that. I mean, I did when I was younger, but I was younger. So, give me a little, give me a little slack. All right. But that's what really turned me on, was I heard that story, and then I was like, I want to find this fucking book. I want to find out if that's true, and it's one of the progenitors of a lot of these different, I mean, even like Napoleon Hill, like based his, was it Think and Grow Rich or whatever? He based a lot of that on the master key system and all this. But again, like I said, look, the law of attraction is not real. This, the new thought stuff, nope, I don't buy into it for a second. But intentionality, I think, is a thing, and also self-control is a thing. And I think that this little book, which I have, morphed into my own little version of zero tasking, I think can really help deliver the goods. So yeah, there's one of my big secrets that I've never told people, because I get a lot of people asking me about meditation, actually, just like even here in New Hampshire. They're like, oh, what do you do for meditating? Where'd you learn about that? And I said, it's from an old book, and I'd never really tell them, partly because the reason I don't want to say is because, like, if I tell them it's from the master key system and then they go looking into it, they're going to be like, what, he's into this law of attraction shit? No, no, I'm not. Not at all. Okay, not even remotely close. All right. But just, I found that this process is, incredibly beneficial to me personally. So if you want to get a copy of it, you certainly can. You can find a free copy of it, or if you want to buy it through the link. Of course, the links for everything in the show notes for this episode will support Sex and Science Hour. And actually, if you buy the audiobook of the next book I'm about to mention, that will support Stephanie, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, because she actually narrated it. I'm going to play a little bit of audio from it here. And again, the book is called, it's You're All You Need, Real Happiness Through the Power of Meditation. So I'm going to play a little bit of that right here, and then I'll come back at the end of it.
You are in a completely relaxed state now. It is now time to begin a guided journey into a place of tranquility and bliss. Release all expectations. Allow yourself to witness the guide journey in a natural and seamless manner. Start by imagining that you are on a lovely and lush, grassy field. Feel the sun's warmth caressing your body and face. The breeze is slowly making its way towards you. Feel the soft, dewdrop-filled grass under your naked feet, the moisture gently kissing the tips of your toes. Witness the sounds of nature surrounding you. Feel the hustling of the lush green trees' soothing branches. There's a waterfall in the background, which is making a soothing, gushing sound as it elegantly cascades. The sound of flowing water instills a sense of energy and calmness in your spirit. You feel a deep sense of harmony with nature. Nature is soothing you and energizing you all at the same time with its magnificence. Become aware of a bird's pleasant song slowly originating in the background. It gets louder with every breath you take. Feel the sound of the wind blowing through your hair. It is touching your face and hair with its natural magnificence. It's moving from your face and hair to your shoulders, chest, and belly. It gradually makes its way to your legs, feet, and toes. The hustling wind symbolizes an indomitable spirit that tests your strength and offers you respite from the heat all the same. You are home in this idyllic destination, a safe haven. This is the place you belong to. This is your space. This is where your mind, body, and spirit experience an unmatched sense of unison. You are free from stress, anxiety, and nervousness here. There is no time to worry. You are filled with extreme positivity and elation. You have a lot of time at hand. There is no rush to head anywhere or get anything done. This time is yours alone. There's a deep feeling of safety and happiness. There is no stress or anxiety touching you here. You are living in a state of pure, undisturbed, and unaffected bliss. Take time out to appreciate the surroundings you live in. Become aware of a big tree growing in the vicinity. There are lots of birds happily chirping on the branches of this tree. Begin walking towards the tree. Feel relaxed yet energized with every step you take towards the tree. Feel yourself going closer to the tree with each deep breath. You are now standing, facing the magnificent, gigantic, and marvelous creation of nature. Nature's wonders never cease to amaze your spirit. You experience an incomparable feeling of communion with nature. Take time to become completely aware of each movement and fully experience every step. Be aware of everything you do without judging it. If distracting thoughts make their way into your mind, be aware of them and gently put them aside to focus on this powerful imagery. Feel yourself getting into a deep state of relaxation. You are slowly but surely reaching a state of blissful relaxation. Stand beneath the tree. Feel its sturdy branches and huge leaves standing above your head. Experience a strong feeling of protection under its glorious shelter. Experience your stress melting away slowly as you become one with nature.
So as you can hear, of course, how do you not just, I mean, listen to that, I just go wild. Ooh, I don't know if I can meditate when listening to Stephanie, but no, really, she does amazing work, and wow, what a voice and talent, not just voice talent, but voice and talent that she has to deliver that. So maybe a guided meditation might be something that'll work out better for you. If so, this is the kind of book. This is a good starting point, in my opinion, to get to that, for a guided meditation. Yeah, you really, in my opinion, you want a voice like that to deliver it too. So if you want to go with something more guided, it's not something I do, so I don't have a whole ton of recommendations on that. I think that this, I certainly, appreciated what that book was laying out. Not agreeing with it 100%, but I appreciate what it's laying out, and I read the whole thing because I edited it. So maybe that's a little more your speed, or maybe you just want to go through the zero tasking process that I laid out in this episode. I also put a link in the show notes because I did a write-up about zero tasking called The Art of Zero Tasking on zog.ninja. I put the link in the show notes for that, which that gives you step 1 through 4, written down, if that's helpful for you. But this is, but here I am just describing for you, what my meditative process looks like. And again, I find it totally helpful. You may not find it helpful. Then don't do it. That's it. You don't have to do it. I do it because I like it, and I like it, and I feel like I feel the benefits. I feel the benefits across the board. I feel it with my body. I feel like, honestly, and this is, of course, the most important thing for me in anything that I do, I feel like the sex is better. I feel like my day is a little more eased. I don't feel so, twitchy. I mean, because you got to understand, I work hard. And I work almost nonstop. And pretty much every day. I don't know. I really can barely remember a day off. I've fortunately been able to take a couple of vacations, but I just seem to never really take a day off. This helps kind of get through that. And if you're wondering, why don't I take a day off? Well, it's because I'm trying to build, I'm trying to build a life for myself here, trying to rebuild in many ways, and get to the point to where, maybe I can relax a little more in the future. But it's going to be a long road, before I can get to anything like that. So anyway, there you have it. That's zero tasking / meditation for you. I appreciate all of you for being patrons. I hope you found this at least interesting, even if you don't want to do it yourself, because I am not going to force shit on anybody. But a lot of people really enjoyed, what I talked about as far as working out. This is as much a part of, I talked about the Hide Initiative, which is this, kind of process of, it's my little goal of self-improvement through supplements and, various types of working out and other things. Zero tasking is absolutely a part of the Hide Initiative, which I'm actually building a website around right now. So, a lot of this information will be there as well in the future, totally for free. But yeah, so if you want to add this into your routine, as part of your health routine, your work fitness routine, whatever, I don't think it would hurt you. For me, it helps immensely. So enough. There you go. I'm done talking. Woo! Anyway, more content coming out this week as well, just for patrons. And so thank you all so much again for being a patron for Sovereign Tech on Patreon. And of course, News, Sex, and Science Hour. Got a great Sovereign Tech already lined up. I actually have some of it already recorded. So looking forward, hopefully everybody will be looking forward to that. And glad everybody's really been loving the new segment intros that I did. And I am so glad, because that was a real roll of the dice for me. But maybe I'll talk about those more on a coming Q&A and what they all mean. Because I already had people asking, what is this all about? What's going on with the story? And people want me to explain it. And maybe I'll dig into that. Anyway, enjoy your meditating. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.